and probably by tomorrow they'll be. But that just tells you.
We'll call the October the 3rd Lincolnton City Council meeting to order. If we can all rise for a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Now, we've got, instead of me leading in the Pledge of Allegiance, I'm honored to introduce Troop 75 under the direction of Teddy Reed, and they're going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'll say this while you're coming up front. Troop 75 is very special to me. I have been involved with them for, God, how many years, Teddy? Long time. Best kids I've ever worked with in my life, and that's saying a lot. So, Teddy, I'll turn it over to you.
Mayor, thank you so very much. On behalf of Troop 75, I just want to say thank you for letting us be here this evening. Thank you for letting us be part of the community. You look at all the things that are happening around, not only in our community, but everywhere else. It gives us great pride to be not only representative of Scouting, but a representative of this community. And just thank you, Mayor. Thank everyone else in this room, especially all those that are providing service, not only Lincolnton and everything else. We thank you. We truly are blessed with what we have in this town. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to our Senior Patrol Leader, Mr. Marcus Coffey.
Color guard, advance. Will you please recite with me the Pledge of Allegiance? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Color guard, post the colors. Scouts, please recite with me the Scout Up.
On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty, to guide my country, to obey the Scout law, to help other people at all times, to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight.
Will you please recite with me the Scout Law? Scout is
Trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent.
Color guard, dismissed.
Thank you, Marcus.
Awesome. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, sir.
Okay, you've had a chance to look at the agenda. I do want to delete an item on the regular agenda, and that is item 4B. We'll delete that. And with that deletion, are there any other additions to the agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Motion to approve as amended.
Motion by Christine. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. You've had a chance to look at the consent agenda items. I would like to make a correction to that. Under the second item, it says September the 15th. Would like to change that to September the 30th, 2024. Now I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items as amended.
I make that motion to approve.
Jill has made the motion. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. That brings us down to the public comment, and who has signed up to speak?
Mr. Alan Hall.
Okay. Alan, the floor is yours for 3 minutes. I thought I'd change it around on you a little bit. Okay.
Mayor of the City Council. I think what you said was you're older than I thought you was if you was a post leader of those leaders there.
No, I helped them with their merit badges for government.
Okay, you're backing up. But anyway, just wanted to mention a couple of different things. One of them is that not so much to the fire chief and the police chief and all those back here in the back row, but to the actual workers that during this past evolution of time that put many challenges on our city and plus. But also just want to mention that right after some of the disaster and the power went down and all this kind of stuff, that at our main intersection there was police guiding, directing traffic. But then the next day they wasn't there. And to the citizens of Lincoln County and Lincolnton, it was to me amazing sight that they was kind of stop and go. That the main line didn't just keep on going; they stopped to allow the other ones to come in. So I just thought that was, I didn't think you'd see that in many places, and probably don't. But anyway, and I also wanted to bring to you a proposal in a sense that the Queen Creek Council had unanimously recently approved a policy to ban DEI practices, and a town representative said the policy is a continuation of merit-based recruiting and training already implemented by the town. And they was to make sure that taxpayer money did not be spent on policies that further race and sex-based discrimination. So pose that to our city council that they do the same thing. There's only two sexes, and that's male and female. And it's a crime against nature to have, and to especially females, to be having training and tournaments and everything else with male, even though they say they want to be whatever they want to be, but it's a danger to and a risk to them. So also for their voting practices, that I recommend that y'all pass the same thing here as far as standing against a policy against DEI. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
Mr. Trent Mason.
Trent? 3 minutes, sir.
Trent Mason, 207 Mockingbird Lane. I don't know if I even need to say that at this point, or if I'm like Alan, where it's just like it's a given at this point. You just copy and paste it every month. But anyway, sorry. Mayor, council, I'll reiterate what Alan said at the very beginning. Thank you to everybody in the city for what they did for the cleanup for past our hurricane. To see the devastation, just driving around the amount of trees. I know Taylor Edie's neighbor, the Taylors, they lost their house because a tree fell into it. And seeing our community rally together is, it's always a great thing to see. It makes you proud. And seeing what's happening right now at the airport, and just the amount of supplies that are being dropped off every day, to see that, all right, we actually need more, we need more airplanes and more helicopters because we're getting more donations than we can, actually get out. That's a good problem to have, and that's because the people that are in this city, because they care about each other and also care about the other residents of North Carolina and just, in general, for the state. And, I can't say thank you enough to everybody. One of my wife's best friends lives in Canton, and to see the pictures of the inside of her house with like her dining room chairs on her chandelier, it made it all the way to the second floor. Her house is a total loss. And seeing that their communities come together, they're smaller than us, but at the same time they're just as resilient, and their crews are cleaning up as fast as they can to make sure that everybody gets their power back on, and so they can survive with as they need water as well. And I know a couple of times shipments have gone straight to Canton, and talking to their mayor Zeb, Smathers, I mean, he tells me, he's like, thank you. He goes, I didn't even realize it was going, but I guess they told him that they were from Lincolnton. And, I have to say thank you to all the residents, of Lincoln County, for coming together and helping out as many people as we possibly could. From there, I'll go to a little bit more of the happy stuff that I usually talk about. And I want to say, for this past, I missed something last month because Rudy Perez, who's on the Young Adult Steering Committee, he won Dancing with the Stars. I got to give him his props, and it was fun for all of us to celebrate that with him. Maybe one day I'll do it, but I've got to have the right partner to do it with. Looking at you, Ed, you want to come up there. Yeah, take your shirt off, have a good old time, right? But no, at the same time, we also had Food, Wine, and Beer Festival, which, once again, big hit. It looked like it was going to rain on us, but cleared out, nothing. It was just second year in a row where it ended up being beautiful skies, a little rain, and then it's the most magnificent day in downtown, and see that many people out enjoying our downtown is just, it's always amazing. Then you've got Cruising for a Cause that happened, Linktoberfest, and then the annual Candace Helms Foundation run. It was at Betty G. Thank you, Nathan, for y'all, for everything y'all did there. And then I said,
Thank you, Trent. You almost made it.
getting hot up here, it makes me feel, getting better at it, yeah.
Thank you, Trent.
No way.
Okay. Now we're down to our regular agenda. First item on the agenda, on the regular agenda, is the termination of the state of emergency. We did, Richie and I had talked about it, Friday. And the county, we'd both gotten an email from the county manager, and they were declaring a state of emergency, and we decided to follow suit. And just a little bit of history on that, you have to declare a state of emergency before you can pull down FEMA monies. And so we wanted to, didn't know at that time how much the damage would be, and didn't want to wait until it was too late. But Christine called me in the meantime and said that Ted Alexander, our state senator, had gotten in touch with her and asked, well, what do you all need? And my conversation with Christine was, we're so lucky. If you're going to concentrate the resources anywhere, go to places that are in worse shape than we are. And appreciate Ted's checking on us to make sure that everything was okay, or Senator Alexander doing that. But anything else, Richie, before I entertain a motion?
No, and I've got, like I say, at my part of the agenda, I'm going to go over some of the things and let some of the department heads discuss what they went through, not only Friday but this weekend, and still going through. But no, like I say, as bad as it was here, we were very fortunate compared to our neighbors in the mountains, and we've been on a lot of conference calls in the last few days, and there's some horror stories up there. And one of the things I've mentioned, and I think that Trent had mentioned about getting aid to them, and I think they've got supplies. It's just getting it to the people. But we need to realize that later this year and early next year, we still need to be thinking about them and getting supplies up there and assisting them any way we can, because people are going to forget. The holidays will come, and they're still going to have issues up there. These issues won't go away in the next month or two. It'll take years on some of it, and their infrastructure is just in ruins. And so it's almost like starting over. Some of these communities, it's almost like starting from scratch.
One of my favorite places is Chimney Rock, and it's gone.
Yeah. A lot of those, Burnsville, Old Fort, Black Mountain's assistant manager was on the conference call, and so it's devastating. And like I said, the main thing I think we need to really think about is not only what can we do today, but what can we do in 3 to 6 months. And that is something. The good thing is, in North Carolina, we are connected through our COGS, and they were the ones that were basically leading the conference call. So that connects you from Murphy to Manteo, and that's the beauty of this state, is we're well connected. Unfortunately, we're spread out, 7-8 hours apart in some ways, but But I'll let y'all know when needs come up, and if we need, can possibly send a crew. Our fire department's already been up to Black Mountain. Our police officers are going up Saturday to Asheville to help with food distribution and some other things. So I'll try to keep you abreast of what we're doing as a town to help our neighbors.
And also, there's collections at the airport. They're going to continue to fly planes up there, and I think till the end of the week.
Yes.
So if anybody wants to donate something, that's a good place to take it.
And I'll give you an example. And things happen. You build relationships. But a gentleman who used to help us with flag football texted me. Hadn't talked to him in years, and wanted to know if I knew anybody he could contact to get supplies to. And he worked at Wells Fargo. Turned out he had 300 pallets of sanitizing wipes that they had left over from COVID that they were going to get together or get to North Carolina, and so we got him connected to the person, and then we're going to connect him with a trucking company to actually get it up there. So I mean, it's little things like that you don't expect, but they're going to need everything. There's anything you use day to day, they're going to need.
From a purely personal note, because that's where I'm from, is a little place called Valley Cruces, and it was just wiped out. And my first job was in Spruce Pine. It's wiped out, so it really rings home, and I hope that for the next several months we keep them in our prayers. But now I will entertain a motion to terminate the state of emergency for Lincolnton.
Motion to terminate.
Motion by Christine. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now, it is with great pleasure that I turn it over to Chief Green. He has a new patch that he would like to share with us.
So Mayor, Council, I know you've seen the design. So this was one of the major requests I had from officers over the years. A couple of things they wanted. They wanted a more modern patch. They wanted to incorporate a wolf into the patch. And they also wanted something that was more subdued as far as the colors go. Our older patch was a bright, almost a neon yellow outline around the patch, so it kind of stood out. So we were able to do that design, and we got the patch in, and we wanted to give y'all one of the patches tonight. So, and thank you for your support in it. So we will incorporate this. It will take us years to switch out these based on uniform orders. Our current budget year, the uniforms that come in will support the new patch, but who designed this, Chief? So we actually bought the wolf, and I put it together, and then we sent it to the embroidery company who did the final kind of design of it. So,
good job.
But it incorporated the new city logo as well in it, and so we're very happy with it. And we had 3 different color samples made up, and we had one that was basically black and white or black and silver, and when we showed it to the supervisors, they all chose to still stick with a gold and black to try to stay with that tradition. So
Looks great.
yes, it does.
Looks great.
And we appreciate your support on this. Thank you.
And what is strange, Katie and I were talking outside, and he had mentioned the wolf pack picture that's over near the restrooms, and talked about what a good touch that was. And so we're very proud of this, and very proud of our ties with Lincolnton and Lincolnton High School. Okay, next item on the agenda, I'll recognize Cliff. Oh, there is Cliff. I started to say I hadn't seen Cliff. Cliff Brumfield with Lita, and the floor is all yours. And let me remind everybody before Cliff starts talking, were you going to mention the rodeo tomorrow?
Yes, go right ahead.
You go. I don't want to take your wind.
Just a minute, but thank you so much for
favorite events, what the mayor's mentioning is our annual forklift rodeos tomorrow at Gaston College Lincolnton campus at 11 o'clock. So it is as interesting and fun as it sounds. We've been doing this for going on 20 years now, and very serious competition amongst those in the drivers and logistics divisions of a lot of our industries. So y'all please come out and join us and watch. So a few things to bring you up to date on. One, the first you see, just wanted to go just briefly show the amount of growth we've had in jobs in the last few years. These are the ongoing county, moving to the city industrial incentive grants. Those in yellow are in their 2-year qualifying period. I think it's just amazing the amount of growth that we're seeing in our job sector. And I also want to echo thank you to our first responders, utility crews, the city leadership, and the employees for getting us back online and keeping that economy running during this most atrocious last week in our part of the state. We're very blessed in how well we fared that. Going down to the next page, you see a large block of yellow, the qualifying newer announcements we've had in the last couple of years there. Most of those will start with their first payments next year, but all of these are tied to a very significant investment and jobs for our community. Look at the difference in the last 2 years, very little as far as what taxpayers, how this is affecting and an outgoing return of the grant. How these grants work is that though they pay that, then part is given back to them, returned. It's all revenue neutral, but don't see any major impacts there. Looking at what the city has of the 3 active there, Spantac has received their second payment upon paying their taxes, and then you have 2 more recently will finish this year. They'll start next year with SG Seating being a new industry, and then Active Concepts, sizable expansion after having their grand opening of that this past June. So excited to see that happen. And just an example of how this works, overall in the county, an approximate of taxes paid last year of about $4.1 million in property taxes, business personal 3.1, total of 7.2. Countywide grants were paid just over $1 million. It's a $6.2 million return back to the taxpayers of our community. I always like to explain how that works, and it is revenue neutral. It is the industries that are paying that. Got another new product coming up out of the ground. The walls of this building are up. There's a new Class A industrial facility under construction, and on your left, when you go in the Lincoln County Industrial Park, that is being built by Crescent Communities. It'll be available for sale and for lease. Another building being built totally with private dollars that'll benefit the city and the county, and showing that was it, that view of that building, and proud to have that coming up and the job opportunities that will come from that. And in other updates, recent activities we've done and looking for to expand our employment base. Kara Brown represented our community at Select USA in recent weeks. That is the largest trade show in the country. It's funded through an Economic Development Administration, where we showcase American opportunities here to foreign direct investment. We actually had a number of leaders of foreign direct invested companies that are in our community, majority being those being German ownership, and she was able to speak with some of them there about ongoing opportunities we know about, and 1 or 2 that we were hoping were coming in the future that we'll be working on likely next year. We are currently reworking our website. We rolled this one out now about 4 years ago. Time to do it again. You'll see some robust changes there. Hope to have it finished in January. Recently had our annual fall job fair at the Y with NC Works. Had about 150 citizens come through there, and nice to see that. It's people out hungry looking for those jobs and getting good jobs. Seeing some of the lower job need numbers amongst our employers, not because business is slow, but because they're filling those positions. But we've still got right around the corner 300 plus opportunities at Bosch here close to town, and then others, other announcements that we've had that will be needing that talent here in the new year. We're celebrating the 30th anniversary this year of the Industrial Managers Association. It is one of the most established and largest existing industry groups in the state of North Carolina, thought by many to be the best model, and of course it is in the Charlotte region, but excited about celebrating that, and tomorrow, of course, the Forklift Rodeo. 2 weeks ago at the International Economic Development Annual Conference, our community and LEDA won a bronze award for innovative economic development projects. Less than $250,000, not only in the United States but across the globe, because of our workforce efforts at the city, our schools, Gaston College, employers, healthcare, and more have worked on that for a number of years, but it was nice to be recognized for that. That is the second award IEDC has given our local workforce effort in the last 10 years. Certainly we're working on the small business side with 9 new small businesses looking for new locations, and most of them are favoring a downtown Lincolnton spot. So Again, having a lower vacancy rate challenges that, but that's a good thing. I'd rather have the no vacancy than be looking out for another one that's supporting the ones that are already here. Upcoming, our Leaders Annual Report will be going to the printer here in about another 6 weeks or so. We've got our first ever Supply Chains Logistics Summit next week with our industries. A lot of concern with the what's going on with our ports there. We'll be highlighting that and learning a lot more about that. 2 weeks we'll be participating in the Southeastern U.S. Japanese Summit in Charlotte. That's where we showcase the region, and actually it showcases the whole Southeastern United States. We're just able to host it in Charlotte for the third time in the last 20 years. We're participating in that as well. And we are helping host a familiarization tour with industrial site consultants in the upcoming Roval 400, thanks to the Charlotte Regional Business Alliance, who is funding all of that for us. And 2 more items. We have our industry tours for students coming up. And listen to this. We used to get up and get real excited about 3 or 4 different industries standing up. We've got tours happening in coming weeks at Analar here in town. Vapor Honing, created and owned by a local resident who got the patent for that honing machines while he was at Gaston College. Leeboy, Gaston College. Unox, Hydac, Huber Technologies, Timken, Bloom, Aptar, and Bosch. And I'm going to say a plug for Timken. Call came out from the group at the airport the other day asking if we knew of an industry that had that they could provide another tow motor or forklift out there. That email had not been gone 2 minutes before Timken called and said, we want to be the one. If we don't have one, we're going to rent one. We'll have it there in no time. And it was there shortly after that phone call. And others were like, hey, if they can't do it, we're on it. But shows the spirit of Lincolnton and Lincoln County. And finally, Gimme Par's new location, the golf simulator right around the corner downtown, should have an opening date and a ribbon cutting date soon. Rhonda will have that, we hope, next week. The owners are almost through. They're real excited. So another new business coming with their doors opening right around the corner in downtown Lincolnton. So I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Looking forward to that one.
Go there frequently. I'm a horrible golfer, but hey, it's simulated. It's not real. So there you go. Next best
We
thing.
can simulate a good game.
That's right. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, next item, we're down to 4 on our agenda. Amendment to the annual budget ordinance, and I'll turn it over to Pam.
Council, you have before you our first budget amendment for fiscal year 24-25. In general fund, for the most part, most of this is normal. We had some insurance settlements and our typical solid waste rollouts and things is over our original budget. The other thing that we have on here, we did have some revenues that we had to revert back from last year because they're project-based, the veterans banner projects and our federal equitable things we had to revert back. So I'm putting this back into budget so the respective departments can spend those funds. Power bill, again, is interest. Our interest is good, but again, the interest rates are going down, so that number is not going to be as robust as it was last year, but it's still doing very well. In water and sewer, we have, again, some insurance settlements that we are received. The biggest thing I want to show you is our electric department. We received from Electricities our working capital refund for this year. It was a little over $1.2 million. The last one we received was in July of 2020, which was $1.3 million. But that helps in our capital line for our electric department. And the other thing I really want to stress is in the insurance settlement is from the electric pole outage back in July. Again, we cannot overestimate the wonderful work that the departments have done during that, not just this past week, but during that time in July. Electric department, street, water and sewer, and all of them who kept the organizations going. But I want to stress really, I want to give a couple people and their departments some kudos, and that would be Chris. Even though he is a one-person department, he is a department. If it wasn't for him using our tsunami cameras, we would not have been able to identify who did the damage to the pole, in conjunction with that, with his collaboration with the county to get additional information to do that. And also, I'm going to give kudos to Denise. If she had not pursued this and be persistent, we would have not received a little less than $66,000 reimbursement for this claim. We normally would just have absorbed it, and I told her no, we've got we've got to get this money. They were at fault, and our resources need to be replenished. So I want to give kudos to those individuals in conjunction with those who actually were on boots on the ground getting all that done. But if you have any questions with our budget amendment, I'd be more than glad to answer those.
And as Pam mentioned, that insurance claim would not have been received without the cameras. Because believe me, when people do that kind of damage, they don't stop. They keep on going.
Okay, if there are no other questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion to approve the amendment as presented.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Kevin. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Pam. Okay, now we're down to 4C, and this is a request for permission to post notice about applications for upcoming vacancies, and I'll turn it over to Daphne.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. I just wanted to bring to your attention and also get permission to post notice for vacancies on the various boards and commissions. We have several people that cannot be reappointed. They have served 2-3-year terms, so they will need to be replaced. The individuals that can serve a second term will be notified, and if they choose to, then they will do a second term. If not, we will need to replace them as well. But the one thing I do want to bring to your attention is there is a couple of individuals that serve on boards that, according to the bylaws, have not fulfilled their attendance requirement for staying on those boards, and I need direction from council as to whether or not you want to let them remain, or if you would like to send a letter thanking them for their service but replacing them with someone that could better serve in that capacity.
I've already given Daphne my opinion.
My opinion is we need to send them a thank you letter and replace them.
Okay.
If they
Good.
can't do the job, then we need somebody who can.
We're all in agreement. Good.
That is it.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the request for permission to post.
Make that motion.
Motion by Jill. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Daphne. Okay, now we're down to the regular agenda items under 5. And first one is Lincoln Meadows easement agreement. And I'll turn that one over to Todd.
Good evening, everyone. This agreement is for the Lincoln Meadows Phase 2 sewer line, gravity sewer line. They had another option, which was put in a lift station, which we definitely did not want. So we met with the adjoining property owners across the road, which is Iron Junction and the Sheriff's Office and the Department of Corrections. They agreed with Lincoln Meadows to give them an easement, and they're taking care of the payment for it and everything. Once the line is installed, then the city at that point will take over the easement and it'll be ours. Doing this will give the property across the road access to sewer also, which they've been inquiring about several times over the last couple of years. So we're just asking you to approve it.
Any questions? I'll entertain a motion then to approve the Lincoln Meadows easement agreement as presented.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Kevin. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Todd. Okay, Richie, you're up next with the interlocal agreement.
And I'll go ahead and address 5B and 5C together. In the past, we had an agreement with Lincoln County that involved the comm center, animal services, and also their contribution to building maintenance to this building, the fire department and the police department, which has worked out really well. But it also involved IT services from the county. And as you know, we hired Chris almost 4 years ago, wasn't Chris? Back full time. He was here before. So we did not need those services. So I've met with Dave and Megan with the county, and we basically decided to exchange that for the difference in water and sewer prices that they receive at the jail. It could be a wash, but regardless, there is going to be probably a little bit of an exchange at the end of the year, and whatever the difference is, the other one will pay that difference to the other. So I would like to add, I did not put the animal services on here. That will be separate. That'll be a separate contract altogether, but those are intertwined because of the water and sewer agreement we have with them at the jail. I think it needs to be added as well. The jail's going through an expansion, so it's probably more likely at the end of the day that we will have a little more into it, and they'll probably have to pay us the difference, but they understand that and they're fine with it. It's a win-win for both groups, and that's, I mean, let's face it, when the county wins, we win, and when we win, they win. So I'll be glad to answer any questions about it, but I can tell you, if we go out and do our own comm center, it's going to cost a lot more than $55,000. You did notice in there, and this is by my recommendation, is we have an escalator of 2.5%. I mean, we need to understand their costs are going to go up, you know, as the years go through. And a lot of it's HR, some of it's equipment, and so forth. And they understand when our cost of our water and sewer go up, their increases go up as well. So I think it's a good program. It's for 5 years. If we agree to it in 5 years, it automatically rolls after that per year. So, but like I said, I'd be glad to answer any questions about it.
We've got a good working relationship with the county, and we both benefit from it. Any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the interlocal agreement and the DCI service agreement. Motion by Christine. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, can you do two separate motions just because it's two separate contracts?
Sure.
Thank you.
I'll ask Christine to amend her recommendation to just do the interlocal.
I amend my motion.
Okay. Now, I'll take a vote on that, which would be the 5B. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Now, Christine, you want to do a DCI agreement too?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Christine. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. And thank you, Richie. We got it all done in one, and I'll turn it. Oh,
And like I said, Megan has already told me we'll have the animal services hopefully on the next one, so we'll get them all done.
and I'll turn it back over to you about the acceptance of ownership of the Lincoln Meadows sidewalk.
Thank you, Mayor. As y'all know, before we had the HOA at the phase 1 of Lincoln Meadows approach the city about taking over the sidewalks. When that neighborhood was initially completed, the sidewalks, they had deficiencies. Some of them were trip hazards, some of them were sewer cleanouts in the middle of the sidewalk, some of them were sidewalks that didn't have proper bordering on their pipe. So we met with them, we went through, we gave them a list, they hired a company, went out and inspected it, and all the deficiencies have been corrected. So I think they've done their due diligence, so it's my recommendation that we adopt the sidewalks that were, I need to be careful when I say this, but we adopt the sidewalks that they recommended to be adopted. There are some gaps out there that the agreement is when phase 2 is built, phase 1 will come, or the developer will come in and finish phase 1, which is great, but that's not included in this agreement. So I think the best way to put it is that we adopt the sidewalks that were agreed upon between the city and the HOA.
They are built to our standard.
Correct, yes.
Any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the city accept the ownership of the Lincoln Meadows sidewalks as outlined.
So moved.
Motion by Christine. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. And we're back to you again, Richard.
And I mentioned before I was going to use my time in my manager's report to talk about the storm. Let some of the department heads that were at ground zero discuss what they went through and what they saw, on a day-to-day and what their staff went through. Before I do that, I would like to mention, because we've got some certificates that have been obtained by a few employees. Justin Elmore with Distribution Collection received his C distribution certificate. Colby Ayers with Distribution Collection received his B distribution. And then finally, Jamie Scholl received his B distribution. So as we mentioned before, we put those in their career ladder, and it allows them to obtain those as they go along throughout their career. So we're proud of them. That's not an easy accomplishment. A lot of book work, and the test is not easy either. So we're thankful that our employees are taking advantage of that program. But I would like to go through just basically I'd like to say first that whether or not an employee was involved on Friday or Saturday or Sunday, every employee of the city of Lincolnton has been affected by this storm, and they will be moving forward. Whether or not they were actually boots on the ground, or whether they're the person that's going to be writing the checks for all the money we spent this past weekend, when you're talking about the city, everybody is involved. And I know Mayor and Council, y'all are involved because you get phone calls and you get questions about when my power is going to be on. But I wanted to take time to recognize some of the individuals that were at ground zero during the worst of it, and cleared the streets and got the power going and make sure the water still came out of the tap and make sure the toilet still flushed and the phones answered and so forth. So we're just going to go through. I've asked the department heads just to give a brief description of some of the things that they went through and what they had to do and so forth. But Brent, if you'll come up, BT. I'm going to start with the electric department. I'd like to mention as Brent comes up, his staff, including Brent, Chris Wilson, Brent Elmore, Nick Sellers, Bill Lovinggood, Will Sane, Teddy Dallinger. All of our circuits were up within 24 hours. Amazing. All the residential primary lines were in place in 2 days. We did have a few that had some secondary issues, or they had their service line that was knocked down by a tree and they had to get an electrician to put it on there. But it was a turnkey job by Wednesday.
I just want to hit on that. I mean, it was amazing what took place in Lincolnton from Friday morning to Friday evening. Just unbelievable, and just can't be more pleased with what took place.
My power was out 4 days, and I don't have City of Lincolnton. So.
Yeah. And that's something that a lot of people don't understand, because I tried to explain it to several residents. We've got 3 different power companies that serve different parts of the city. So, we have Electricities, which serves all the old part where most of us live in. But then you've got Duke Power out where Christine is, and REA and parts of it. So it is confusing, and I explained to one guy that he sent me an email that was like 2 pages long. And so I just emailed him back and said, call me. It's easier to explain it than to try to go into detail on an email. And after I finished, he said, I never realized that. And he said, well, the city crew was right over next to us, and he explained where he lived. And I said, yeah, but you're served by Duke. And he said, yeah. And he said, I wondered why, if they'd come that close to my house, why didn't they just get me on?
You'll have one neighborhood, where I live, you'll have a neighborhood that has Duke Energy, and right behind them is REA. Yeah. But it goes to regulatory and the way everything's kind of like the railroad, the way it was drawn out in the Wild Wild West, and it's very similar.
And, in the past, we're under Duke Power, so we were out a lot longer usually than the city. We owned a building we could go to that had city power, and we sold that. So we're at the Duke Power, so.
We would welcome you to come into our system
We would
anytime you
love
want
to.
Christine. But Brent, I'm gonna turn over to Mr. Turner, and just like I said, just to kind of give a briefing of what they went through and some of the things that they saw in the field and so forth.
I'm going to spin a yarn for you, but I want to start by telling there's a fellow named Elmer Keith, and he was born in 1889. And he saw Indian wars and World War II and World War I, and the cars coming on and people not using horses anymore. And he had this vast knowledge. And people would say, well, Elmer, and he wrote a book. And they'd say, Elmer, how do you know these things? And the name of his book is Hell, I Was There. It's true. You look it up. I can say that bad word because it's in print. Yeah. But Elmer Keith was an authority. He was there. So I want to speak to that as being an authority. Hell, I was there. And what I'm kind of like Charlie Daniels when he gave the 1996 UNCW speech. He said, my qualifications are humble but extensive and diverse. And that's it. I was a Duke lineman for 15 years, and I was on a storm team. And so when we got our territory on, then we loaded up and we went other places. Went all through North Carolina mountains, went all the way to Georgia, through Georgia, Florida. I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of things happen. I've been there when it happened. I've been in the middle of it when it happened. I was a Duke lineman the night Hugo hit in Lincolnton. So I can tell you every second that went on. There's not many of us left, but you know, we were there. So I'm Elmer Keith. Hell, I was there. So I'll tell you. We got ready for it. We got everything ready to go, but just like Mike Tyson says, everybody thinks they got a plan for the fight till they got hit in the mouth. And we got hit in the mouth, but they kept going. I was so proud of them. That's mostly what I'm going to cover. But I'll give you a few numbers, but you know, not very much. But we started out about 4 a.m. That's what happened to us. First guy out was about 4 a.m. and by 4:30 we were all down at Public Works because it had gotten pretty bad. I want you to know that those 7 linemen, they left 5 women they love at home. They left 10 kids they love at home. They left 2 dogs they love at home. They left everything they owned and went out in it. And every raindrop of hit and every puff of wind, they never quit. They never quit. I'm proud of them for that. I wasn't gonna cry. Now I'm really mad. But anyway, I'm really proud of them. They went 23 hours first day. Food was hard to find, but Rudy at the police station, he kept us going. The fire chief called us. He had Chick-fil-A. I offered it to my outfit. They said, no, we're not ready yet. And linemen are like that. They want to get something else done. So for 23 hours, they just kept on rolling. They kept on hitting it, kept on doing what they were supposed to do. We knew the cavalry wasn't coming. We knew we were it. Cavalry was not coming because everybody had scooped everybody up. But let me tell you about some of the people that did help us. And I think that was the big thing about living in Lincolnton. We had a council member that fed us, found us one day. We ate it that night about 12:30. The fire chief, I called him in the middle of it. I said, we can't communicate. Our phones are down. We can't communicate. We can't cut a line on with people on it. We can't take the chance of killing anybody, especially us. We can't communicate. He said, he didn't say I'm too busy. He said, what do you need? He brought us walkie-talkies. He got us by. Now that was big. Brad Gates' crowd, we had trees down. We couldn't get the power lines up. We made sure there wasn't any power on them. They came in, cleared them. We got them up. Rudy kept us fed. He knew where all the free food in town was, and we would look up and here he would come. And you know, he would just stash it, and we would get to it when we had time. But I want you to know that the spirit of Lincolnton was alive and well. And even though, you know, we had to be rescued, the fire department came and rescued us. We got stuck a couple times, and they came and rescued us. The police department came out and directed traffic in a spot where we were more afraid of getting hit by a car than actually getting electrocuted. So they helped us. it was a big deal. It's good to be a part of something where everybody pitches in, and the cavalry needed help and we got it. We really appreciate it. We had 1,600 people off at one time. 75% of our whole grid was down. Probably 90% of people. The only people that didn't go down was the mayor's side of town. My mother
told people, hey, it had nothing to do with me being a mayor. We're on the water plant.
My mother is convinced Ed had something to do with that. I think he told her he did, and I'm not going to tell her any different. She thinks Ed got that done, so we're going to let that go, okay? And Richie showed up like the Holy Ghost. It's like I turned around, Richie'd be there. I didn't know how he got there. I thought he'd be in the bucket with me. One time I looked around, but he never made it in the bucket. But he made sure that if we needed anything, we got it. And I can't say enough about his concern for us and his concern for the city employees and the city constituents. It was heartwarming to see. I appreciate everything that everybody did for us. We really do appreciate it. He was the Holy Ghost. I just want to say something. The last thing I want to say before, even the fire department brought a fire truck out so I could take a hose up and put a pole out. I'm telling you, it's crazy. But I've seen enough to know, and seen enough, been a part of it to know that what went on here with the amount of people we had was nothing short of a miracle. As a guy that's traveled putting power lines up all over the eastern seaboard, Chris Wilson had enough. He had gathered enough equipment over the years that we're down a lot, but we've still got a little bit of we're still in the fight, and that's the main thing, because we don't know what's going to happen next, and we always have to be ready. He had us ready. Everybody that went home after that first 23-hour period went home to no power, no water, no anything. And for the next 5 days, he did a 21, a 19, a 18, a 16. Finally got down to a 14. We felt like we'd really done something because we got to go home before it got dark. And most of them were still going home to no power. But they came in smelling clean. I don't know how they did that. It was amazing. But they did such a good job. I can't see any more about it. It's just amazing. It really is. It's just amazing. Here's one thing I want to leave you with before I quit. I hope I don't cry again, but I'm just so proud of them. You're going to have a pay study next year. You're going to have a pay study. And it's already in the works. And I'm like Elmer Keith here. For 2 years, I taught at Caldwell Community Technical Institute. I taught linemen. And for those 2 years, we graduated kids with 14 weeks of lineman training that thought they could go out and rope the world. They can't even carry my pliers. I'm just saying. And I was at every recruitment meeting that the utilities would come in and say, hey, come to work for me. And I can tell you this, 75% of them made more than these people that left their homes and came out. And that's saying a lot. So I want you to remember that. I want you to remember that 7 people left, 5 wives, 10 kids, 7 homes, and 2 dogs to come and do their job. And they did it exquisitely, efficiently, and the most important thing was they did it without, we all had 10 fingers and 10 toes when we went home. Everybody went home. And I've driven somebody's car home that didn't make it on a crew, and I'm thankful that we didn't have anything like that. Safety-wise, he did great too. Just remember them next year, because it'll come up, and I want you to remember the sacrifice they made. They make half of what a Duke lineman makes, and almost less than what 75% of the kids that we graduate out of a 14-week school that don't know the difference between a donut and an insulator. So I would ask you just to remember that, and I'm really thankful for the team that I got to be a part of. And you know, Richie being the Holy Ghost, I might be pushing that a little bit, but we just thank you all. Okay.
Thank you, Brent.
Thank you.
Brent, you said earlier you were proud of him. You said earlier you were proud of him, and you should be. And I think the city is very proud of the guys and what they did. It was something else. Friday morning early, I went out, just drove around just to kind of see what was going on, and they were out there getting it.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe it. But they were out there getting it. It was amazing. So.
And everybody else was, you know, taking cover. We were just getting down in a bucket trying to get by that next puff of wind.
I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The guys up there working in the bucket.
I appreciate doing that. They're serious about what they do, and I couldn't be more proud and thankful.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you for providing what you have for us. We've got really good equipment.
Yeah.
But you know, the departments that helped us, it was just amazing. And you know, when the cavalry gets rescued, it's a big deal. So, anyway, thank you, Fire Chief.
Now y'all get to be the cavalry.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, I can tell you right now that those guys are thankful to have Brent too, because he's a great leader. And I'll say this: when you're out there watching them do what they do, it's amazing that they're doing all that in a bucket. And sometimes they're signaling to each other, and I can't figure out whether they need a wrench or they're going to steal second. But their communication is unreal, because you can't hear a thing when you're out there. And that's the reason I wanted the department heads to come up and share a little bit, because the experiences, and I've always said, your mistakes and your valleys will make you a better employee, a better person. And those guys have been together long enough that they've gone through these storms and so forth, and that's the reason they're as good as they are. We've got seasoned linemen, and we've got great leadership, and if you go out there, you can't tell the difference between the department head, superintendent, or the other A's. They're all doing it, and we're very thankful to have the department we have, because you know, Tanya and I, we've talked about it. That is, you know, we know that coming up it's going to be just like it was with public safety. We're going to be in a competitive market, and you know, Cliff mentioned, and I mean, you know, we're not only competing against other cities and counties, we're competing against Timken and Bosch and the Walmarts of the world too. So, but thankful, like I say, because if you look at those numbers and how quickly the power got back on, it's very, very impressive, and to do it safely. That's the key. That is the key. Next, I wanted Nathan, you'll come up. I wanted to mention streets, solid waste, and public services. I'll tell you this: they cut over 25 trees, and countless roads were cleared. A lot of times they'll just go in, make 2 cuts, and take the backhoe and just clear the road, just so people can get back and forth, and our emergency services can get through as well. But Nathan, Brad Gates, Jason Moretz, Charlie Yancey, Zach Ellis, Jeremy Burleson, Aaron Bright, Caleb Little. Also wanted to mention Nathan and Brett Campa and Austin May, because they were responsible for getting the equipment and everything to high ground at Betty Ross. I will say this: we've seen the other side of that, and it's number one, it's disheartening because you lose equipment. Number two, you got to clean all of it up. So they did a great job getting everything. They had sandbagged the gym, so if the water did get up to that. I will tell you about, now we have a monitor at the 27 bridge, so we know what our levels are. We generally are going to be below 24 feet. Right now we're around 11 or 12. That day we got up to 30.4. In 2013 we were at 35. That tells you how high the river got and how widespread it was as far as our parks are concerned. But I'll let Nathan kind of give you an idea about what they went through on the street side and the parks as well.
So I'll start with street, and I just want to echo what Brent said. You know, he's proud of his guys, and I think we're all proud of you guys. Because, you know, when a storm hits, everybody's calling about their power. When's the power going to be on? So those guys are rock stars in my mind. So, my guys out there on the street department, they're rock stars too. I mean, they move countless trees out of the roadways. You know, help clear some some poles and stuff for Brent's guys. So, and it just doesn't stop from Friday. As you know, we're in the cleanup mode now. So we just ask for the patience of our residents to be patient with us as we go out and begin picking up the debris. It's going to take us a while. We only have 2 knuckle booms. We've got 3. The third one's being worked on, and hopefully we can press that into service pretty soon. So we do ask for patience on that end. But those guys were amazing. Again, they were in the heat of the moment with rain coming down and winds blowing. They were out there cutting those trees up. So hats off to them. Also, Cody Cherry. I know Cody don't get recognized, but is he? Okay. But Cody, on the equipment services side, he was in just in case we had any equipment failures. He was there to help. So I want to give a big shout out to them. On the Parks and Rec side, as Richie mentioned, thank goodness we didn't experience another 2013. So for those that were here for that, it was something else, flooding wise. So as Richie mentioned, Austin and Brett were very instrumental in helping to move equipment, so we didn't suffer a loss there, as well as rollouts. We didn't want to make a donation to High Shoals with our rollouts. But we moved those to higher ground, try to keep people out of the flood zone. If you've ever been to Betty Ross Park during the flood, people flock there to take pictures and sightsee. But our main concern is keeping them safe and keeping them out of those areas. So we tried to secure and rope off those areas to avoid someone potentially being swept away. So good thing is it didn't get in the gym. It did get in the shop and the concession stand. But that's just brick and mortar stuff that we can clean up. We do have some downed trees and limbs on the nature trail, disc golf course, and in the picnic area. So we started the process of cleaning that up. Hopefully we'll get that cleaned up in the next few weeks. City Park, there was flooding there, but again, thank goodness it didn't get high enough to get in the concession stand. So we were fortunate. We were very fortunate. So it could have been a lot worse. And I want to give a shout out to Brent Smith too, Chief Smith, because as Richie mentioned, he did share a link to the flood monitoring website. That was very helpful because we could see what was being fed into the South Fork River from the Jacobs Fork and the Henry Fork River. So we could kind of see how high the flood stage was going. And so that was very helpful for him to share that information. But citywide, I mean, we got the best employees around. And it was a team effort, from police, fire, even staff at City Hall came in to field calls. So it was a team effort, and everybody should give themselves a pat on the back. So that's all I had.
Thank you, Nathan. Nathan, well, he must have read my notes because it goes straight into City Hall from here. So, I would like to mention, we have put several things in place with our communications, and a lot of that is communications between departments. But we also try to do our due diligence and communicate with the citizens. And it's hard at sometimes because the guys in the field they're actually doing something. So it's easier said than done to say, hey, get your phone out and let us know and so forth. So we've learned over the years, there's a better way to approach it. And this storm, I thought we probably did the best job we've ever done with communication. And our employees communicated just terrific with each other. And then we tried to keep the citizens aware of where outages were and so forth. there's no perfect way to do it, because there's so many ways to communicate. Mike and I mentioned this before. Back in the day, you could put it in the Lincoln Times or on WLON, and you got 90% of Lincoln County that way. And it's just not like that. So it is hard to get a hold of some people, but I think we did a great job. I'd like to recognize two people that worked all weekend on that. I don't know if Beth is here, Beth Hall, and then Laura Morris, our Community Relations Director. Beth was constantly letting the crews know where the outages were, how many we had. She was relaying that to Laura. Laura was letting the public know. And this went on all weekend. It was nonstop, just like Brent said, from dusk to dawn, well, I'm sorry, from dawn to dusk. But really, I thought this was probably, and it being one of the worst storms we've had, it's probably our best effort as far as communication goes. But it's because we have our department head meetings, we discuss about what needs to be done, and I think a lot of it is just you go through so many different issues that you try to make it better and eventually get to the point where you've got a good system in place, and that's what we tried to do. But I also wanted to mention there is something that Chris Jones put into place, and it's a chat that we all have, or most of us have, and that allows us to communicate back and forth. It's part of our email. It allows everybody to see what's going on. So no matter what department you're in, you can see when there's a road closure, you can see when there's an outage, you can see where there's a main break, and it lets us know because, we may have nothing to do with that department, but we may know something that's going on in that area. So it really helped us this time to be able to use that and to communicate with each other. I also would like to thank Lori Benfield and Daphne Ingram, who came in and helped Beth handle the phone calls. David Ramsey and Jennifer Black, who came in Friday to relieve them, to give them a break. I'll give these two credit because they were the first ones at City Hall. Johnny McLean, I don't know why, but she decided she needed to come in and clean City Hall that morning. That's Johnny, if you know her. And then Lee Bogney, who came in to get ahead because she needed to get everything done for open enrollment. She took her 3 different turnarounds from Kings Mountain to here to get here. And she was actually responsible for sending the rave out to the employees to let them know that we were going to close our services, or not our services, but our City Hall and the Recreation Center and so forth. So I'm thankful to those two for going beyond the call of duties, I've got to say. Chief Green, if you'll come up. Police and fire, they're constantly, running calls. If you stay at City Hall long enough, you'll find out really quick that the siren down here at the fire department goes off all the time. A lot of times it's going out to Boulder City for a wreck. Sometimes it's going to a call, in a residence. Police are the same way. If you're ever listening to your scanner, you know that we're constantly going out to our citizens and our businesses and so forth. But I would like to mention, not only were they running calls, but they were checking areas for flooding, letting the street department know when they needed cones, directing traffic, and I don't know how many hours of directing traffic that was, Chief, but I can tell you I went home late 2 nights in a row and they were still directing traffic. And also assisting our utilities, what Brent was talking about right there at Hillside. That's a terrible place to have a line go down, and without the police department there, we probably would have had a lineman or a line truck hit. But I would like to recognize the employees that were involved on that Friday, and Chief Green and Captain Painter and Sergeant Carroll, Sergeant Brantley, Officer Lell and Von Bargan, Officer Schultz and Christopher, Officer Payton and Smallwood, Officer Holman, Schrontz, Officer Rausch and Captain Harris, Sergeant Rushing, Sergeant Posey, Officer Roper, Officer Lafone, Officer Withers, Officer Watson, Sergeant Seibenheier, Detective Diallo, Detective White, Sergeant Wolf, and Detective McQueen. And I would like to say right now, before I get any further, if I leave somebody out tonight, I'm very sorry, but I promise you, they tell me they're going to get mentioned in November because there's a lot of people on this list. But I think we covered them all. But in case we didn't, we will discuss that in November. But Chief, if you'll just briefly go over what y'all experienced and some of the difficulties.
So I would just like to say how proud I am of my guys. I had phone calls from people that were not working, asked them to come in to help us. And some of them we allowed to come in, and some of them we had to turn away because we might need them at another time. So, I don't want to diminish anything that my guys done, but the tasks we were doing were tasks we do every day. They were just a lot more of them. I mean, things just kept coming. The real rock stars is Brent Turner and the street department that had to come out and do things that, and work those hours and, not able to take breaks like we were and things. But, we had officers that it's very like Rudy that, would go out and check on people and make sure of things. We had businesses like Vittles saw me walking down the sidewalk on downtown, and one of the owners came up to me and said, "Hey, we got food that's going to go bad. We got gas. We don't have any electricity, but we can cook it if you can start telling people they can come and eat." So we were able to notify all the city departments that they could come and have food. Richie was, from the very beginning, to reach out to him, asking things like, "Hey, can I feed my guys?" Things like that. He was very responsive, anything we needed. But the city, what I saw was everybody just worked really hard together. And, the guys put in long hours. I and captains got out there and directed traffic. And I can tell you, if that's something you haven't done, even though I was out there an hour, we rotated in. I felt it Saturday and Sunday as well. So, but everybody done their part. Everybody came together, and we had people come in on night shift to help support them as well. And it's very nice to hear Brent talk about our guys and some of the things they did, and that's something I haven't heard. So I've heard Rudy because they've mentioned it to me, but my guys are not bragging about, "Hey, I went and done this," and things like that. So I would just like to say I'm very proud of them. But again, the street department, the power, they were the real rock stars out there, and being out there. But our stuff was normal. It was just a lot more of it. So
I will tell you something though, and I've noticed this, in the last months. As you know, we have a somewhat of a new staff because we've hired a lot of new officers. But I think Chief Green and Major McAllister have done an excellent job building chemistry with those staffs, because the guys, even in the tough times, they look like they get along really well, and they're very community service oriented. They do really good with the contact that they have with our citizens, and I've heard nothing but positive from our citizens when they've had an officer come out to assist them. So I thank you for that, because it shows in times like this. Because, like I say, and he's right. They were doing things that they normally do, but it was a lot more of it.
Yeah, and like I've said, y'all have heard me say many a times, we spend more time with each other than we do our families. So at home, and I still have guys that don't have power but are not missing work. They're coming in and working just their normal shifts. They're taking showers at the PD, things like that. Rudy was one of the ones, as far as I know, as of Tuesday, he still does not have power. So he's been off a couple of days now. So, but we've got guys that live in Morganton in the mountain areas. Stephen Roper, he's got a lot of damage at his house. He doesn't have power, hasn't had power, doesn't have an outlook of when he's going to get power. So hasn't missed a day of work. He actually had a vacation plan, supposed to start tomorrow. He called and said, "Hey, we're not going on vacation. Can I cancel that and come into work?" So just like I said, everybody coming together, we're really proud of them. So.
Thank you, Chief.
Joe? Mayor, Council, I don't miss an opportunity to speak, so I just want to take an opportunity to tell you that I'm not trying to sell myself out of a job, but probably the greatest thing in the world that you can have and experience as a department head is to walk in and see that you're not needed. And I absolutely mean that from the bottom of my heart. I walked in and I saw Battalion Chief Fletcher sitting there running this with Comm Center, and he had assets deployed all over city and Boger City. And I said, "What do I need?" And he said, "Not right now." And I thought, so I did what I do best. I started doing logistics for him, and I know you don't need to hear it again, but I want to say the same things that everybody else said. You have an amazing electric department. You have an amazing public works department. You have an amazing police and fire department. You've got a great city manager. You've got a great council. Not only do I work here, but I live here, and I have a lot of invested interest in this town. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the guy that actually ran the event and made it work for the city. So, Chief Fletcher.
Thank y'all for letting me speak, and thank you again. And I'm going to do what everybody else has done, and I'm going to give a major plug to our electric department, because we also receive those phone calls for my power's out, and all we can tell them is help's coming. And that's we just reassured the citizens. And this was my first major storm in a leadership role, because I'm not going to tell my age, but I was one when Hugo came through. So don't really remember that. So, but no, I was fortunate enough, or I am fortunate enough to lead the elite group of professionals that worked Friday. Just to give you an idea, we have normally we keep 5 trucks on the road during the day, 24 hours a day. And we had 7 that day. We were blessed enough to be able to up our staffing a little bit, because we were like other departments. We predicted that we were going to have a pretty big day. We had 19 personnel that were working that day. Usually we're around the 12 or 13 region. An average day for your fire department, we're usually somewhere between 12 and 20 emergency calls per day. That's a normal 24-hour shift for us, somewhere between 12 and 20. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. On that Friday, in about an 18-hour period, we answered 91 calls for service. And for a fire department, that spread us out pretty thin. But the guys just, I'm going to echo what Brent said. I mean, just they go in out in the harsh conditions, and they performed, and they didn't complain. Most of the time, I'm answering phone calls or trying to get on the radio to tell them where to go, and the only time I see them is when they're running in the fire station to go to the bathroom, grab a bottle of water, grab a sandwich, more fuel for the saws or more fuel for something else. They get back in the truck and they're gone. And another thing is our communications center. They were upstaffed, but they were also very overwhelmed in a period of time. Between the time, I believe, of 6:30 in the morning and about lunchtime that day, they answered about 950 911 calls. That is an extreme undertaking for them, but we were able to work with them and prioritize those calls. And every call is a priority, of course, but they were able to work. They actually dedicated a dispatcher to me where I could talk to them on the phone and say, okay, I need you to tell me where are the trees on the houses, where there's people trapped, there's a tree on a car, or something like that. Those calls that take that little bit higher of a priority, where life safety is a big deal, and say, I need you to tell me those immediately as soon as you get them, because those we're going to divert resources to that. But we cover from, as you know, on the west side near the one stop all the way down towards Orchard Road on Highway 27 is our fire district between the downtown fire station and the Boger City district. It's a very large area, but the guys performed just phenomenally. It kind of, I like what PT said, you're not prepared to fight until you get, or you're prepared for the fight until you get hit in the mouth one time. We usually come on duty at 7 o'clock in the morning, but our guys usually here between 6:15, 6:30, and we got knocked right out the gate, and it was pretty much come in the door, change out, and get rolling. We go into storm protocol with our communications center, which basically means that we are responsible for keeping up with our times, prioritizing our dispatches, and communicating our resources. That means that the comm center can potentially be overwhelmed, and we pretty much they're going to send it to us via computer or via softwares, and it's us to disseminate it out. And I'll give another credit for Chief Hebner. Whenever you come in and say, what do you need? And he knows firemen, so he said, when he went and got us food. So he went to Chick-fil-A, got us some food, guys were fed, tried to get the electric department to come eat with us, but once again, like BT said, they're working. And I can't give enough to Brent and the street department as well. They're phenomenal people. We really do. We're really blessed. We really are. We really do. And at one time, around 12 o'clock, we had to hit a pause for just a second, just kind of let the guys get in, regroup, get our stuff together, let me put eyes on people and say, okay, everybody good? All right, we're going to go again. And we had 35 calls pending from 911. Of course, they were not the trees on houses, things like that, but we had trees down, power lines in the trees and things like that. But the guys, they really performed. They really did a good job. And out of those 91 calls, approximately 80 of them were weather related. We still had your normal calls that people call 911 for a medical emergency. The fire alarms were going off, wrecks were happening, and things like that. So, and along to our normal daily activities, we had a significant weather event that we had to deal with as well. And just guys did great. And we had really good, I'm going to say the thing again with the city manager, that communication and that chat is so great, because I was able to communicate with our public works division and things like that. So, hey, we've got a huge tree across Arney Street, and it's beyond our capability of our saws. Can you help us? And they would automatically send a crew out and get that at least cleared, because we have to get paths in to get to these people. And that's something that a lot of the people in the mountains are really suffering from right now, is they can't get to them. Richie mentioned that we had a couple of guys go to Black Mountain for a couple of days and just kind of see what some resources that are needed and things like that. And one of the biggest things is there's so many people in the woods that they can't get to them. They can't get the resources to them to check on them. We're very fortunate. We're very good people, and we have a lot of good people that work for us. I'll entertain any questions that you might have of us, but I know you hear us go out all the time. But
just thank you.
Oh, absolutely.
It's really nice to hear from everybody so far. It's in situations like this, a lot of times you get a lot of finger pointing, which isn't good, but I'm hearing a lot of finger pointing tonight, but it's all good. Everybody is complimenting all the other departments, so that's a very heartening thing to see you all compliment each other the way you have, because it truly was a team effort, and again, we're super proud of all of y'all, really are.
And one thing that a lot of people don't know is that whenever you go into a storm protocol, a lot of times people have to open up your own emergency operations center. We have one at the County Emergency Services Building, but we pretty much made our own here. We had the police department come in with us, and we were working together, and we were actually able to communicate with the police department face to face and say, hey, did y'all hear that? And they were able to get information out on their radios, and we were able to get our information out, and it worked very well. And that's something you don't see in a lot of places, is for the police and the fire departments and all the departments to be able to just work together, and everybody for the common goal and for the common good. You know, everybody, there's a lot of pride in our town, and we're really proud of our people and everybody working together. So it was a hard day, but we all came out better.
And I'd like to list those individuals as well with the fire department. Mention Chief Hebner and Joe, but Branson McNeely, Chad Hatmaker, David Zemore, Edward Roberts, Ethan Millwood, Justin Ford, Micah Hone, Brady Hickman, Jason Engel, Derek Park, Tyler Russ, Bryson Caldwell, Elijah Herron, Joseph Henderson, Shrummy, but we don't call him Michael around here, Glenn Floyd, Jimmy Rudisill, Mason Reynolds, Peyton Dexter, Brent McConnell, Austin Morton, Carson Chapman, Marcus Shoemaker, Mackenzie Williams, Terry Ratz, Chris Till, Jason Leonard, Mitchell Higdon, Bryson Caldwell, and Lee Hansen. Thank you, Joe. I mentioned before Chris Jones, because a lot of this that we're talking about, he has been responsible for keeping us connected and getting us connected. And he also looks after the mayor and I, who have no tech skills at all. And but he keeps us on track, doesn't he, Mayor? But he tries. Mentioned before, you know, all our departments are involved or going to be involved. Joe didn't tell you that they cut the HR director. They cut her rose so she could come to work. Isn't that right, Tanya? Yes. And but you know, like those staffs, HR staff, Tanya and her staff, Pam McBride and her staff, they're the ones that are going to have the long road moving forward, especially if they're going to be federal money and so forth. I've already sent several things to Pam and said, here it is. You know, here's the applications. Here's what we need to do. We've not really decided if we've come up with enough, you know, cost and receipts to actually apply for that FEMA, but we are in those 27 counties that were included. But I tell people all the time, no matter what you do, somebody's got to pay the bill. and has to account for that. Mentioned before about Cody and Billy with the fleet maintenance. You know, we have large pieces of equipment, and not just anybody can operate on those, or fits those. And so we are thankful that we've got that in house. A lot of people don't have that in house. Just a few more people I want to mention, and then we'll go. I want to give kudos to Gene Derby and Ashley Jones, because they both called in and wanted to know how they could help. And if y'all know Gene's situation, she was at home with Jason, who's had a major wreck, and still trying to help others, and that just tells you what type of employee. So every department we had as either was involved or will be involved. So like I said, this reaches every department and every employee. People that fed us mentioned Vittles. It just so happened their power got turned on too while they were feeding us. So that a little something for the other restaurants out there to think about, you know. Lincolnton Country Club, they ran in the same boat. They were trying to get, they didn't want to lose their food, so they were feeding firemen, police officers, linemen, and city workers. Pearl Baptist Church had a supper for the linemen and the public safety guys. Mentioned Randy Carroll. I think Nick's wife, if I'm not mistaken, brought a meal. Brent. Yes, and mentioned Jill. Nathan fed his guys. It's those things that the employees really.
Richie fed our guys too. He's not going to tell you.
It took me 3 days for them to let me feed them. So actually, everybody jumped in front of me. I'll give them credit on that. I do want to thank the citizens for being patient. And I want to say this. We not only got our calls, but we got everybody else's calls. REA, Duke. We had phone calls from Cat Square to Denver. Everybody, they were just getting a number with a voice, and they were wanting to explain what their issue was. And there was, there is wide panic when the power goes out and people can't get water. I like to also mention the mayor, because I probably called him more in a 48-hour period than I've had to before, but I wanted him to understand some of the situations we were going to in case he got the phone calls. And I tried to keep everybody up to date through the text, and that seems to work best with council. Like I say, if I've left somebody off, I'm sorry. I will make it up in November. But I would like to say we do need to pray for the mountains, and we need to be here for them long term, not only short term. So I'll try to do my best to reach out to my managers in the mountains and let them know, hey, when you get past a point and you quit getting the phone calls and you quit getting the supplies, let us know, and we'll team up with the Piedmont and bring it up the mountain. But I wanted to do this because we don't do this often. I'm trying to get y'all out of here as quick as possible. We did get out by 8:30, so that's not too bad. But I've got, actually, you're right here. Todd, come on up. See, no. Here you are. You're right after fire, water resources. I'm glad you mentioned that, Todd.
Nobody thinks about us when the water's working and the toilets are going down.
I went straight from fire to IT.
That's all right. I'm going to brag on Brent and his guys too. As most of you know, you see most linemen, they're young, and these guys here is getting some age on them now. Not just him, but the other ones too.
Todd, have you looked in the mirror lately?
They're older than me. Now Justin, Elmore, and Taylor Braun, they worked all weekend.
And Todd.
Well, I didn't work as much as they did.
Yeah.
Just keeping check on the lift stations, making sure everything was pumping. They had to do a bunch of filling up generators, pumping and hauling. The ones we didn't have generators, they spent half a day at Periwinkle lift station putting a bypass pump up. As soon as they got it hooked up, it pumped it down one time and the power come back on. The worst thing we had was a water situation in Boger City. We had both pumps go down, East Main Street and 321 pump stations. 321 pump stations, Duke Power, and everybody kind of knows how that is. Brent and them done an excellent job getting East Main Street pump station back up and running pretty quick. It'll only pump 175 gallons a minute to Boger City, which will usually keep up with them. But at one point, they were using 200, 250 gallons a minute. So that kind of drained the tanks down.
I need to mention the hospital atrium. They were so grateful for the work, and I know that it was the city and county working together to get the water pressure back up. But we were in dire straits even with the hospital.
Yeah, their emergency plan is to call a tanker to bring them water. So I called him as soon as Nolan from the plant called me and told me, hey, we're going to start getting calls. We're losing water. The tanker, I told him, go ahead and call, do what you need to do. He called and they said the tanker would be 6 to 12 hours before they could get there. So we called the county, talked to Ricky Talent with the county and some other ones. There's an old pit down there at the store across from Forest Lawn Cemetery that we used to sell them water for. We were lucky it didn't have a backflow or anything on it, so we were able to turn it on. When we got out there, it had 11 pounds of pressure on the city side. Once we turned that on, it got up to 50, started getting some water in the tanks. They did get 321 station back on Saturday evening. But like I said, there for a little while we was kind of scrambling, trying to figure out what we could do. And I've talked to Richie and Nolan and them, and I think we definitely need to look into getting a large transformer that's portable, that we can use at that station, or we can use it, police can use it, fire, anybody in a situation like this. Chris Carpenter also come in, help push trees, help clear some right-of-ways for them to get power to the school the other day. But yeah, everybody done good. Chris Jones with the chat. It's my 30 years being here, that's probably the best communication since we got rid of the old truck radios, which was a lot of communication you really didn't need to hear, So yeah, it worked good. Daniel, he called, checked on everybody, checked on the plants, kept an eye on it. Nolan, everybody done good. We had a generator down 2 hours at the waste treatment plant. They were able to get CAT out on Friday in the storm to get it fixed and repaired. And they treated 12 million gallons of sewer, which a lot of that was creek water, but everything was up and running, and like I said, all the guys done good. They left wives at home and dogs. One of them even left horses at home. Yeah. Just want to put that out there.
Chris left horses too.
Yeah, I forgot about Chris.
And Colton Gant, he was getting on.
Yeah, and Colton Gant, he come in with me and Rick and helped turn water on out there and get it at the hospital. We sat out there an hour or so. Little Rick stayed on the phone with the county water plant to monitor their tanks, make sure we wasn't draining their system or they need to cut on a pump station. Nolan worked all weekend pretty much at the water plant. We stayed on the phone with him, having him and his guys check the water plant to make sure it was starting to get water in the tanks. But yeah, that could have been real bad. But yeah,
I can't stress enough how that was so beneficial to the whole county. I mean, that they were to the point that they were even considering transporting patients. Yeah. And you all came in and
Greg, he came out there while we were there, and they were going to a county hydrant with a pickup truck, 55-gallon barrels, hauling water to the boilers to keep them cooled down and everything. So yeah, it could have been bad. I'm really shocked that the hospital really don't have a backup water supply as far as a tank or a tap on the county line on Buffalo Shoals Road. Greg said they did have some plans drawn up for that, I think, originally, but never went through with it.
That was in the original plans whenever the hospital was first proposed out.
Yeah, and they're talking to John, the county engineer now, as far as doing that. That way we don't come into this situation again. But if it does happen, we at least know what to do now, that we can steal a little bit. We'll sell the water to the county and then get it back from them.
We looped it around back to us. So I'm so thankful Todd mentioned that and come up here, because he's my first meeting tomorrow. And if I had to face him knowing he's the one I forgot, plus we started our careers together, so that would have been bad. So, but he's modest, but he was here all weekend as well, and and that department is definitely battle tested. When you're maintaining 75 and 100-year-old lines every week, you're used to the storm. It's every week, but just thankful. Those guys at the plants, they don't like running that generator, because that means they're one step away from not being able to push water to town. So we're thankful, like I say, for everybody, for all the city, its citizens, mayor and council. And like I say, I just wanted to take an opportunity tonight, since we had a light agenda, and recognize one of the things we're going to try to do. We only have one public hearing. We'd like to bring some of these, or just invite some of these employees just to come, so you can put a face with a name and be recognized by council at our next meeting.
Richie, we talked briefly, just text messaging back and forth about what we can do to pay it forward. Is there anything we can do to help Western North Carolina?
Well,
I mean, we have some resources. We're not huge, but do we have anything we can do?
Now,
is there a plan or any thoughts on the matter?
I had a conference call today with the Western North Carolina Managers Association, and I think now that FEMA's there and North Carolina Emergency, everything's going to run through them. Okay. The people that I've had locally, I've sent either to the airport or the YMCA, and then some of the other ones I've gotten them in contact with other people across the state. Chief Hebner gave me a contact to give the gentleman from Wells Fargo. I really think it's a sit and wait, but I will say this. When we find out that there's a need to a community that we can get resources to, we will do whatever we can to that. Now, naturally, as Nathan mentioned, our solid waste and street department guys, they probably have a month's worth of inventory sitting out there right now. But we'll do whatever we can to help. And I've got several contacts in Asheville and Boone, Morganton, and so forth, and I've already reached out to some of those and let them know that we're here. And because, like I said, we were in a tough situation, but they're in a long-term situation. It's just going to take a while.
All right.
But I think what you'll see is with the COGS, because that was the reason we had that call today, to get them, North Carolina League of Municipalities, and the other organizations that kind of bring our cities and counties together, to make sure that now when there is a call for help, we've got to organize. So it's not just coming to one city, it's coming to all the cities. Very similar to what we do with electric cities.
Thanks.
Anything else?
No, I'm going to leave it at that. I think I'm going to transfer everything else to next month. Okay. But I would like to mention, I think you've got right here, Chief, do you want to talk about the pendant ceremony? They got it? Okay. All right. Good deal.
Okay. Mike, any questions from the media?
Do you have a contact at the airport? I'd like to follow up on the flow of supplies and donations that are being transported from the airport here up to the mountains.
Email that to you?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Oh, one other thing, the alcohol contract, what was that?
It was Culture Center's decision. I'm not sure whether or not they couldn't get a vendor or whatever. But
the event was still picked up.
Yeah, the event's still on.
And you know what? When that venue was put there, when that stage was put there with the park, it was Devin Ryan's vision that we would have those type of concerts, those small, concerts that, especially with the weather we've got right now. So it's really good to see that park come full circle.
Yeah, I know you had a movie screening there.
We did. Yeah.
Was this the first concert that's going to be at the...
That I know of. You know of one, Laura? Nathan?
Well, the Nicaragua,
Costa Rican festival, yeah.
Parade ended up doing, the Lantern Parade ended up doing a concert there with their, the park was full, singing the national anthem for Hispanic Heritage Month. But the reason it moved, the Cultural Center is under renovations and their performance hall is not finished, because that's where this concert was originally supposed to be. So in talking with Kathy Davis, we worked out that we put it at First Federal Park. They were debating on whether they wanted to sell alcohol, because if they'd been endorsed, they would have. And they couldn't use their own lawn because there were already concerts scheduled at City Cellar and Rotary. So it would have been too much music.
Yeah, too much
So
music.
it's the perfect place for First Federal Park to pick up that. Dueling Pianos is a fun show, and so it should be a good community event.
If there's nothing else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Christine. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.